Pi network with the Pi token is having a terrible time. It's one of the worst performing cryptocurrencies today and even this week. The question is there a floor? Does it make sense to buy Pi at one point? Let's have a look at the data most people are not considering. Now have a look at the top 100 cryptocurrencies. So that's according to their market cap, and it's ordered by the performance in the last 24 hours. Pi was the fourth worst performing token. When we order by the entire week, Pi is unfortunately the worst loser of them all with a lot of delta. Number 2, Jasmy coin only lost 8.5%. Pi lost almost a third of its value in the last week alone. And so that's then how that looks like on a relative valuation chart to Bitcoin. So the idea of purchasing an altcoin over Bitcoin is to get outperformance over Bitcoin, right? We take on more risk, we should long-term expect more performance. But exactly 1 month ago, on the 27th of February, we saw the peak in Pi relative to Bitcoin. Pi underperformed Bitcoin since then by 73%. Now here's the common argument. The overall crypto market didn't do that well recently, right? Bitcoin tended to go down as well, and the altcoins tend to be somewhat of a levered bet on Bitcoin. So when Bitcoin is going down, most altcoins should be going down more. To a degree, that's correct, because this chart here starts on the 20th of February, and since the 20th of February, Bitcoin went down. It moved from 98k to currently 87k, a decline of almost 11%. But again, this is a relative valuation chart, and it shows very clearly how Pi is doing pretty badly. And it's not just relative to Bitcoin, right? It's relative to everything else. Now, what's going on here? It looks like the sentiment around Pi is clearly shifting. Have a look at this video by Jimmy Mao. Shout out to you. He's got 22,000 subscribers right now, and he has more than 500,000 Pi tokens. He got this mainly through referrals. So he advertised the Pi network on his channel. He invited others to join, and that 500,000 Pi, even at the current price, should be worth around $400,000. But here's the thing, only 1,000 Pi are available. All the rest apparently is not legitimate. Apparently the referred people that use the Pi app to mine Pi tokens have abused the system. So in the end, only 0.2% of the coins that he expected to get were actually available for the mainnet migration. Those kind of numbers are of course very worrying, and that changes the dynamic among the pioneers quite a bit as well. Most people actually hold very small amounts of Pi. So there are 6.6 million holders that have less than 1 token. There's 1.8 million holders that have less than 10 tokens. And only once it becomes a bit more relevant, right? Let's say 500 tokens, so that's now $400. We've got the numbers that actually matter. But we can clearly see how it's very important to know what happens with all of those other tokens. Are those tokens that are not going to get claimed? Will they get burned, so benefiting the current holders? Will they get allocated back to the team, back to the development, to then be spent to be potentially selling pressure? Will they go to the market makers? Nobody knows. Now, I've published several videos on Pi as well, and I was quite critical. There is indeed a lot of attention on the Pi network. So this was the very first video that I published on Pi, and the typical video is here in gray. So that's a typical video on this channel, and that first Pi video got way more views, 4 times more views. Another video followed, again it got more views, another video followed, it's at the upper range of what I usually get, and here's the recent video, again 78% more views. So obviously there are people interested in the token, still the price is going down continuously. So many people are getting burned here. And here's what I mean when I say that the sentiment within the Pi community is shifting. Have a look at the comments below the recent video. So number 1 is scam. Then we've got I completed my KYC and they said that my coins are in the forfeited and penalized category and I will not be migrated over. Or then over here, meme coins are more sensible than Pi. Or here, I start to think this is a big scam. Pi is toast. This shit is a pump and dump, but with extra steps. Pi will be on bottom at $0.001. So initially the project was able to attract a lot of new users because of the promise of mining the cryptocurrency on the phone, having to do nothing else but just pressing one button per day, and then also introducing a very strong affiliate network that then also incentivized other people joining the system. That's how the system grew very quickly. But now when it comes towards fulfilling that promise and moving over those Pi tokens from the app to the actual blockchain to then potentially be able to sell this off, now many people get disappointed. The question now really is, what happens with price discovery? Most trading volume happens on BitGet. But on top of that, we've also got bets on the price, perpetual futures on MACD and on OKX. And I was wondering, is the market just betting on one direction here? Is everybody betting on falling prices of Pi? And I think the answer is no. This is the funding rate for Pi on OKX. And there's no real imbalance over here. The position value in total is also just 15 million. So it seems like the perpetual futures market is not yet manipulating the price. It's relatively balanced. This seems to be somewhat natural selling pressure. The few people that were able to receive their Pi, they tend to simply just sell it off, and that seems to be causing this underperformance. The Pi team is trying to shift away the attention to Pi domains, but I don't think this will be very successful. Pi domains cannot be accessed by the Chrome browser. You need to have an extra extension, or you need to have the proprietary Pi browser. So you can't just use Firefox or Chrome and access those Pi domains. So they're pretty much useless. Now, when things don't look that great, when most altcoins are going down and when they especially underperform versus Bitcoin, I think actually it's time to make money. It's not time to exit the market. This is what most people do. I think that bear markets are actually the easier markets to make profit. Because have a look at this screenshot here. This is a premium member that shorted a token with a modest leverage of 3x, and that made 25%. This is his message, tagging me, I made my first profit, thanks. I'm not sharing the exact asset because we are still betting on falling prices of that asset. Again, there are some very weak altcoins that sometimes pump that we can then short, where we can make very easy profit during times like this. Most altcoins are now deflating. It's an always repeating story. What we've got over here is XRP relative to Bitcoin. So this is a relatively long-term chart starting in March of 2021. And whenever we see positive news, when all of attention goes to XRP, the price is rallying, but then sooner or later we do get our crashes. And it's relatively straightforward to make money with those crashes. We're simply looking at what currently pumped a lot, where didn't we see any new all-time highs, but where are we likely going to stay in the trading range, and then we just bet on falling prices. And especially when there's currently a bear market, when a price relative to Bitcoin goes down by 74%, we can make more than even just 74%, right? We can lever this up slightly as well. Or have a look at Dogecoin, right? The same story. Elon Musk tweets about Dogecoin, it goes up, and then afterwards the attention moves to the next token, and we just see a continued price decline. This is again 74%. We made money shorting Dogecoin, by the way. So I'm sharing all the trades that I do betting on falling prices with all the premium members. There are also alternative ways where we don't have to be that active, right? There are some altcoins that are that bad in tokenomics, where the supply is increasing that quickly relative to the demand, that the underperformance relative to Bitcoin is pretty much just a straight line. So what we've got over here is Balancer relative to Bitcoin, and it simply just continues to go down. Now, the reason why I'm sharing this position here is because the tokenomics aren't as bad anymore compared to a few years ago, right? I was shorting this throughout the whole of 2024, and I've closed that short now. But the reason why charts like this exist, the reason why we can make money with this, is because the supply increases over time. But this is now Balancer, and a year ago we saw how the circulating supply would still go up by like 30-40% within a year. This is not anymore the case. So relatively speaking, Balancer doesn't expand that quickly anymore. That's why the underperformance is slowing down. That's why I'm now sharing this publicly on YouTube, right? I didn't share this on YouTube in 2023 and 2024. This is where I only shared this in premium. We really have to be realistic about the market. I believe strongly that the long term wins the game. It's always about being consistent. It's always about beating the market over the long term and have proper risk management. Making money in crypto is not just about finding the next 100x meme coin. That can work with a lot of research during a bull run and when we've got a lot of influencers that all coordinate each other that then push up the price. But in a bear market that doesn't work. When there's no new investors joining, that's not the way to make money. I mean, just have a look at this. This is the top 100 tokens. And what we've got over here is Bitcoin, and this is ordered by the performance in the last year. We've got 16 altcoins that outperformed Bitcoin in the last year. 2 of those altcoins, by the way, are gold derivatives. So this is just the gold price going up. So in the end, we've only got 14 out of the top 100 cryptocurrencies that did better than Bitcoin. The vast majority of altcoins did much worse than Bitcoin. And that happened during a period where Bitcoin actually went up. Bitcoin during the time period went up by 25% almost. This is something most people don't understand. Most people think that when Bitcoin is going up by 25%, that the altcoins in theory should go up even more because they are smaller in market cap, they're more volatile, they're somewhat of a levered Bitcoin, but that's only true to a degree. Bitcoin can go up by 25% in a year and still the vast majority of altcoins does worse than BTC. So instead of trying to find the next 10x meme coin, when it's all just player versus player and when no new people enter the space, instead of trying to beat the impossible game, why not get the odds in our favor, right? When more than 80% of altcoins in the top 100 do worse than Bitcoin, why not bet on that? Why not bet on the 80% doing worse than BTC and make money with that? That's personally what I currently do, and that's also what the premium members are doing. That's how short-term gains like this happen while the vast majority of people are just losing. Now, I have not seen any other influencer being that transparent about their own performance, but I want to share what kind of performance I make, and I also want to share this over time, as in not just I have made X%, but I want to share how volatile the game actually is. Crypto trading is a game of both luck and skill. And the longer we are engaged, the more trades we do, the more the skill component will be stronger compared to the luck component, right? It's pretty much like in a casino. If you play versus a casino over the long term, you will lose money. You might win money short term, right? Because the luck is on your side, but over the long term, the odds, the expected value is what plays out. And so what we see over here is a scatter plot. How much did I outperform buying and holding Bitcoin every single month in the last 3.5 years? Some months have been incredible outperformances over buying and holding Bitcoin, right? The very best month was over here with 25% outperformance, but we also had pretty poor months like over here, an underperformance of 18%. So the thing is fluctuating. What we've got as a dotted line here is a 12-month moving average. Most 12-month averages have been positive. When we average out all of those data points, we come to 2.1% per month. So in other words, on average, I make alpha over buying and holding of 2.1% per month. So when we compound this, it's a bit over 25% per year. Now, is this enough? Depends on how much you're betting, right? If you only have $100 to invest, it doesn't matter. But if you've got $10,000, maybe even more than that, it does matter because again, this comes on top of Bitcoin's performance. And so here's what I believe Bitcoin will do over the long term. Instead of just looking at the direct prices, I prefer to look at the realized price, so the average cost basis. Over time, the current price is hovering around that realized price, right, the average cost basis, but the cost basis itself tends to increase quite steadily. And this increase over the last few years was roughly 25% per annum, 30 to 25%. I'm rather conservative, I say 25%. So we've got a bit over 25% per annum from trading. We've got a bit over 25% per annum from just buying and holding Bitcoin. So compounding this again is more than 50% per annum. If you've got more than $10,000 and you put this into 50% per annum long term over the next 3-4 years, that kind of money does matter, right? Isn't that better than trying to gamble it all away with meme coins? Meme coins are ultra risky, and that's why most people just put a few $100 in them, maybe $1,000 here and there. But if you've got a strategy that's somewhat limited in risk and where you have a long-term track record, then putting in more money, allocating more of the overall wealth towards such a portfolio does make sense, right? Then we can play in the tens of thousands, maybe even hundreds of thousands. We don't have to just bet $100. Now, everything I've just explained is in more detail in the premium membership in the tutorial section. There's more than 100 premium tutorials in the membership, and it's not just about shorting, it's not just about betting on falling prices, it's also about risk management, about asset allocation, about on-chain analytics, etc. Besides the tutorials, I also share, of course, what kind of trades I do so that you can simply just copy trade me, right? You don't have to go into every single altcoin in detail all the time. I dare to say that most crypto communities probably lost money in the last few weeks. And I don't think that's true for the premium membership here. I do believe that the vast majority of our members made money because we were prepared. So feel free to check it out. It's currently $125 per month. There's also a 1-week money back guarantee. So in case you don't like premium, just message me within the first week and I refund you 100%. If it's your first time here, feel free to subscribe. I publish videos regularly. A like would be very much appreciated as well. Helps the channel grow. See you again on YouTube or see you in premium. Cheers!